Imagine handing over the keys to your only vehicle to an acquaintance.
Oh boy.
Right, just
Yeah.
entirely on a handshake. And then they look you dead in the eye a few days later and claim the car has actually always been theirs.
That is basically a nightmare scenario.
It really is. Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are so thrilled to have you with us. Today, we're extracting some pretty incredible insights from a classic historical text.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one.
It's all about a borrowed white horse, a completely brazen false claim, and a king's, well, highly unorthodox trial.
Very unorthodox.
Our mission today is to use this specific narrative to answer one core question for you. How does society actually prove ownership, and uncover the truth when the unwritten social contract completely breaks down?
Because it always breaks down eventually, right?
Exactly. So our source introduces us to this young, notoriously honest trader. He has this deeply loyal, beautiful white horse, and then an old acquaintance arrives in a rush.
And just completely shatters that social contract.
Completely.
I
Okay,
know.
let's unpack this. Because how does a simple, temporary act of trust mutate into a definitive legal claim of possession?
Well, to understand the mechanics of that mutation, we really have to isolate the inciting incident in our source text.
Right, the moment of the loan.
Yeah. The acquaintance asks to borrow the horse for, quote, just one day, and he promises to return it by evening.
Just one day.
Right. And the text specifically notes that the trader hesitates, but only briefly before he hands over the reins. So we are witnessing this really fragile moment where a private asset is transferred,
Based on nothing.
based entirely on an invisible, unwritten agreement. Yeah.
I mean, I have to push back on that brief hesitation right out of the gate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because in the real world, blind trust usually just results in, like, a total loss of your asset.
That's true.
So is the source arguing that this vulnerability is some sort of noble strength?
No.
Or is it actually presenting a cautionary tale about the absolute necessity of hard contracts?
That's a good question.
Because handing over your most prized possession, just based merely on the fact that you know the person socially, it seems, I don't know, remarkably naive.
Well, it definitely looks naive from a cynical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But what's fascinating here is the psychological operating system of the trader.
Okay, tell me more about that.
The source establishes him right away as a man deeply known for his honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And in behavioral psychology, there's this concept known as the truth default theory.
Truth default theory.
Yeah. People who possess a really high baseline of integrity, they tend to automatically project that same framework onto others.
Oh, wow. So they just assume everyone is honest.
Exactly. For this trader, trust isn't a transactional currency that requires a security deposit. It is a living bond. He extends that bond because his own character makes him assume the acquaintance is bound by the identical moral rulebook.
Okay, I see. So his defining virtue is simultaneously his greatest blind spot.
Basically, yes.
He assumes a shared framework of integrity that simply doesn't exist in this transaction. Let's look at the mechanics of lending itself, though. When you lend something valuable to someone, you're essentially creating a temporary vacuum of ownership.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, you still own the asset in theory, but the physical utility, the day-to-day control of the object, has been entirely transferred to the borrower.
And that physical vacuum is precisely where the psychological drift begins.
The drift from trust to theft.
Exactly. The unwritten social contract relies on both parties respecting that invisible tether between the object and its true owner.
Which the trader believes is indestructible.
Right. But the borrower, he quickly realizes that the tether is entirely imaginary. It's enforced by absolutely nothing but manners.
Which brings us to the timeline of how that invisible tether gets severed. Because the shift in the borrower's mindset is where the source provides this fascinating look at human rationalization.
It really does.
So evening comes, right? And there is no return. Day 2 passes in complete silence. Yeah. And by day 3, the borrower isn't laying low. He isn't like hiding the horse in a barn out of guilt. He is actively, proudly riding it through a bustling public market outside of town.
He is deliberately parading the asset.
Yeah.
And the psychology behind that choice is critical here.
How so?
The text implies a drift. It's not an immediate calculated heist. During that silence on day 2, cognitive dissonance took over.
Ah, cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. The borrower possesses the horse. He enjoys the elevated social status of riding this beautiful white horse, but he knows definitively that it isn't his.
So he's got this internal conflict.
A really intense internal psychological conflict.
Yeah.
And to resolve that, He has to rewrite the factual narrative in his own head. He
Beauty.
begins to actually justify the possession.
I mean, I see the progression, but the audacity still shocks me.
It's bold.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When the trader finally tracks him down in that market and confronts him, the borrower doesn't apologize.
No, not at all.
He doesn't offer some lame excuse about losing track of time. He actually laughs.
Just laughs in his face.
Yes. He looks at the trader and says, quote, "Yours, then prove it. The horse is with me. I'm the one holding the reins. What the world sees is what the world believes."
That is just incredible.
He is employing what I would call the squatter's rights of the mind. Like he has genuinely convinced himself that the sheer physical act of holding the reins just overwrites the original history of ownership.
Well, that concept, squatter's rights of the mind, that aligns seamlessly with the endowment effect in behavioral economics.
An endowment effect.
Yeah, it's this phenomenon where human beings ascribe significantly more value and inherent rights to an object simply because it's in their physical possession.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
But the borrower takes it a step further by weaponizing the optics. He recognizes that public perception can be actively manipulated to manufacture a new reality.
Fake it till you make it, basically.
Exactly. If the crowd repeatedly sees him confidently riding the horse, their baseline assumption defaults to him being the rightful owner.
Wait, so he's not just stealing the physical animal, he is actively weaponizing the crowd's implicit assumptions against the rightful owner.
That is exactly what he's doing.
That is a completely different level of sociological manipulation. I mean, he is outsourcing his alibi to the unsuspecting public.
Yep.
And the truly terrifying part of the source material is that it almost works.
It really does.
The text notes that a crowd gathers and they immediately split. Some know the trader's historical character, but others look at the immediate physical evidence, the borrower sitting confidently on the horse, and they side with the thief.
Because humans are highly susceptible to the illusory truth effect, the borrower's brazenness acts as a psychological shield.
Like, who would be crazy enough to steal a horse and show it off?
Exactly. The crowd implicitly assumes that no rational person would be audacious enough to steal a highly recognizable white horse and then parade it in the literal center of town.
It's hiding in plain sight.
The sheer undeniable visibility of the act makes the ownership seem legitimate. The borrower is banking on the fact that human society often equates confidence with truth.
But this public confusion, it really exposes a massive flaw in how human justice operates.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when the optics are tied and society's informal judgment fails because of these conflicting narratives, how does an authority figure actually uncover the objective truth?
Right, because now it's a legal issue.
Yeah, the crowd is deadlocked, so this dispute naturally escalates to the highest authority, which is the royal court. And here we get a brilliant clash of communication styles.
The contrasting arguments in the court really reveal the internal state of both men.
Totally.
The trader speaks plainly. He simply states, "I gave the horse in trust. It was meant to return." It's raw, it's unfiltered, and it lacks any strategic spin.
Just the emotional truth.
Exactly. The borrower, however, he speaks like a defense attorney looking for a technical loophole. He relies on clever, legalistic logic, asking the king, if the horse is in my care now, on what basis does he claim it?
So he is essentially demanding that the king prove a negative.
Pretty much.
He's challenging the very mechanics of legal proof. And I mean, in a modern context, whether it's a corporate boardroom or a courtroom, this is a nightmare scenario.
It's the worst.
There is no paper trail, no digital footprint, no undeniable witnesses to that original verbal agreement.
Nothing but their words.
Right. If I'm the authority figure here, the path of least resistance is to demand character witnesses or look for a procedural technicality or just divide the value of the asset to make the headache go away.
Split the baby, yeah.